So I thought I would share a more wholesome story today. A story about the unconditional love that I received from a very special person in my life, and how helpful that was early on in my transition process. Grandparents. They can be absolutely wonderful, loving, and supportive. And they can sometimes also be like shitty and racist and homophobic, or old school, as you might hear if you want to use a euphemism to try to excuse their behavior. Thank goodness my grandma is an example of the former, showing me unconditional love and support once she knew about me and my transition. It unfortunately did not start out super well. It was not all rainbows and butterflies at first, as most of our transition processes aren't. My parents, my dad specifically, he was afraid they wouldn't be able to handle the news, and they might have a heart attack or something like that because they're frail old people. I don't know. An excuse to not confront the scary reality of having a trans person, or a reality that shouldn't be scary but is scary to so many people. I did think it was stupid at the time, but I tried to be patient. I had just come out to my parents, they were still processing it, my dad was especially still processing these things, so I was like, okay, this is acceptable for now, because you're still getting accustomed to my transition. I don't expect you to tell other people about my transition before you have even fully digested it. So, sure, but this can't be forever. And as many of you know, I came out in November of 2015, came out full time. My dad said I could come home for Thanksgiving, but only if I went as and presented as Colin, my dead name. Not sure if I've actually shared that on the channel yet. I held firm, and I said no. I'm not going back in the closet, especially since I am out literally every other place in my life. The same mentality was being put forth for Christmas, but my mom did eventually call around mid-December and said she did want me to come home for Christmas. She wanted to see me. Great to see my mom, although I wasn't allowed to join for normal Christmas celebrations at my grandparents' house. So, I just saw my mom, I saw my dad briefly, but I spent most of the holidays with my mom and some of my close friends, which was really nice, and it was actually a breath of fresh air, because in some ways it was very different than what I normally did. And then something really bad happened. My grandfather fell, he hurt himself badly, ended up in hospice, passed away suddenly in January 2016, and all of this happened very quickly over the course of a few days. None of us, of course, expected this to happen. But I also was not invited to see my grandfather either right before or after he passed. I've dealt with some of these feelings I have towards this situation, but I still do have some resentment toward my father from this, because I do feel in many ways I was deprived of her having any potential for a relationship with my grandfather. Sure, he may have not been accepting, but I never even had the opportunity to find that out for myself. I put my foot down again here. I told my mom, my grandma needs to know. Heaven forbid something happens to her and then not a single one of my grandparents ever meets the real me. Yes, unfortunately, both of my mom's parents have also already passed away. To my pleasant surprise, my mom actually did call my grandma later that same week and told me that my grandmother would love to talk to me and see me. I called my grandmother and she said that she missed me and she had wondered what happened to me, since my parents really told them nothing, or actually I'm not 100% sure what they did tell them. My mom told her briefly about my transition and she seemed accepting immediately. When I called her, I found out that the most important thing to her was just having a relationship with me, the way it should be when it comes to acceptance of trans family members. I ended up visiting her shortly thereafter at the retirement community that she lives in, and without having me even explain very much at this point, she immediately began introducing me to all her friends as her granddaughter. And some of her friends even said they wanted to set me up with their tall grandsons. If only they knew that I'm not into the men. But long story short, I spent hours telling my story to my grandmother. She really just wanted to know. She listened and never seemed impatient for me to finish. To this day, she is one of my only family members who has actually given me the space and time and had the willingness to really truly hear my story and learn about who I am in any sort of detail. And I've had a great relationship with her since, and all of these experiences meant so much and still mean so much to me to this day. Really, My grandmother's great. She helped me so much early on in my transition. She helped me with living confidently in my skin. She helped me on that journey. 2016 was a transformative year for me. And I think she's a huge part to play in that. I think many people can and should take a lesson from her, especially allies or potential allies, family members that like, oh, somebody came out in the family as trans, what do I do? Take a lesson from her. Love people for who they are, not your preconceived notions of what you think they are or what you think they should be. Love them for them. Support trans people on their journeys and support them on those journeys of being themselves. Express gratitude for their willingness to reveal their stories and identities to you, because that's a very vulnerable thing to do. Don't then go and betray that trust by kicking them out of your life simply because you cannot bear to have a relationship with a trans person. You cannot bear to have a trans person in your family. Follow the example of unconditional love provided by a grandmother. A grandma I feel so very privileged to have in my life. So what are your reactions to this story? Do you have, and hopefully you do, similar experiences of having that sort of unconditional love and acceptance from family members or close friends or both? What are other things that people may be able to learn from stories like this? Things that we can use to help educate people and get them on board with supporting us. Crazy idea, right? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Tipsy and I love you all so very much and hope that you're staying safe and healthy as much as you can during this tough time. And if you have not done so already, please be sure to give this a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Bye for now.